So we're given this function, this f prime of x, and we're asked to sketch this function f of x. Okay, so what does it mean? What does this little symbol here with a little tick mean? All right. Well, let's say we've got a function y is equal to 2x, right? That means if I plot this, and I'll do it in pink, it'll just be like this. Okay, this is 2x. Now, another way of writing this is just by calling this thing a name. Let's call it some name and let's call it f because that's what we normally call it in maths. And that's called f of x. So you might have seen this before, right? Where you find the derivative of y and you find the gradient. In this case, it's 2x1 minus 1 all times by 1, and that's equal to 2, right? So it's just equal to a gradient of 2. And this one we can draw in red. And that tells us that the gradient looks like this. It's just equal to 2. Okay? And another way of writing that is just by saying that is f prime of x, right? That is just f prime of x. There you go. So we're finding the gradient of things. Now, because we're only given like negative and positive values, and we'll get to the actual values, what they mean, you need to know that if you've got a positive gradient, you kind of look up like that. If you've got a gradient of 0, you're like this. And if you're a negative gradient, you're like this. Cool. Let's go to the actual question. So this one, we start off, right? We start off with a gradient that's equal to 0. So at some point here, right, we're given that it's a gradient of 0, which means it's also going to be, oh, sorry, it's not a gradient of 0, it's a negative gradient. So for the whole time, the graph is looking kind of like down, like this, right? But it keeps going down until it gets to this point where it becomes 0, and now it becomes a positive gradient, and then it becomes still a positive gradient, right? But it's just less, and then it becomes 0, and then it becomes a negative gradient. So hopefully you see what's going on here. So the key things here are that it's got to, I guess, follow this curve. So we don't know where it starts, right? Because we're not given an initial condition. So we're going from something that's the derivative to the initial value, which means we integrate it, right? Technically we're integrating the function f prime of x to get to f of x, okay? So that means that we also get a plus c value. So for here, I'm going to assume that it's 0, and we're just going to get the general shape correct. Okay, so what's really important is that we can tell what kind of graph is going on here, because see how it's like a negative, it goes down and then up like that. And then this one, right, it goes up and then down. So therefore we know where the mins and the maxes are, because you can see that it's telling you that it kind of goes down and then up. And if you plot them together, right, like you plot that with that with that, it produces a minimum. Whereas now if you do that and go across and then down, it produces a maximum. So we now know that there's going to be a minimum, right, here, and there's going to be a maximum at the top there. Okay, and then at this point, right, the second derivative is going to be 0, which means that we get like an inflection, which means it changes. So it just means that it changes there. So what we can say is that it will go through, I guess, this particular curvature where it goes down. Oh, let me plot that again. Down, up, and down. So first of all, how did I know that it was going to look like this as well? Well, the dead giveaway here is that it's got like pi's and everything like that, which means it's either a sine or a cosine function. Okay, so it will be in the hints that it's a sine or a cosine function. And then they basically just are offset by 90 degrees. So we can see like this point here, for instance, is just lagging by 90 degrees, or that pi on 2. Okay, so hopefully like that intuition, I guess, comes from understanding the graphs, but hopefully you get the general shape, and then the plus c value doesn't trip you up as well. Like you don't know exactly, like maybe it's actually like this, but you don't know because you don't have the plus c value. So assume it's 0, and then you get a plot like this, and it's just converting between sine and cosine essentially. And that's all that's really to it. So if you have any questions, reach out. Now we've got plenty of exam questions like this, questions that could appear in your exam, and these are the ones that are going to get you the marks. So stop doing all the textbook questions, jump to this one, and then you're more likely to understand those harder questions that are going to appear. And then if you're still struggling, reach out because we offer in-person or online tutoring or even group tutoring. So reach out, click the link below, and otherwise like and share this content if it's something that's helped you in your exams.